Hello, Global Theater. My name is Jerry Fielka. Today is Halloweeny, October 31, 2023. We want to thank Rob Grant and his amazing podcast. I'm probably wrong about everything. Boo.
Boo, boo.
Yeah, boo hoo. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here with Alan Berman for part two. We did September 14th, part one. Alan, where in the heck you calling in from?
I am in Canterbury, New Hampshire, in the heart of the Lakes region of New Hampshire.
How
One of
cool.
the most beautiful places in America, actually.
That is so cool. So, James Joyce was the first projectionist in Dublin about 100 years ago. He basically checked out. He said, "This is stupid. Why should we go inside a building and see a movie of a tree when we can go outside and see a real tree?" Years later, Faulkner said, "Sometimes the best fiction is more true than journalism." Why do we have to recreate things in order to get them? Why do we have to go to a theatrical play of people acting out life? Why don't we just live life?
I think we need to be reminded. Um, there's so much in life to pay attention to, and in any one moment, we are winnowing down our window of perception into a couple of things that we can actually hold still for a moment, and that means we have to sort of erase all the periphery in order to pay attention in the moment, which means that we're in a constant state of forgetfulness, intentional forgetfulness, and so we experience art and theater and movies and literature in order to remind ourselves in the moment of those special things that we forgot that we forgot.
It's great. I love you use the verb whittling or whittle down, in David Lynch's Twin Peaks, he goes, "You can resume whittling, whittling away on the back porch.
Yeah.
But I love your intentional forgetfulness. That's really good too. So, Alan, you've had several pursuits and callings in your life. I mean, basically 40, 50 years as a therapist, and are you still a musician? Do you still play music?
I do. I am in a four-piece blues band as we speak.
How cool is that? So,
It's
and what
very cool. I have a 77-year-old white female blues singer fronting the band.
how cool. And what instrument do you play?
I play percussion. Actually, I came up playing Latin percussion. Um, I started when I was in college playing with a folk singer, and we thought we were um, Tim Buckley and Carter C.C. Collins. So I had a single conga drum, and Bernie Kaplan played a big box Guild 12-string guitar that sounded just like Tim Buckley's guitar, and we actually did some Tim Buckley songs. And so that was I played trumpet when I was in high school, but I could never feel it because I was always reading the music. And when you're reading music, you're using the left hemisphere of your brain. And when you're playing music, you need to use the right hemisphere of your brain. And it's really, really difficult to use both hemispheres of the brain
Yeah.
simultaneously. It takes practice and discipline, and a willingness to make mistakes.
Well, good. You got ESP. You sort of anticipated the follow through line on this. So I wanted to know the tipping point. But before I get there, so mainly you've been a percussionist. Are you also a songwriter composing music and lyrics or covers or what?
No, I wish I was. Um, I'm actually in the early stages of trying to put a comedy act together, a musical comedy act with a friend of mine. So the way this has gone so far in our one rehearsal, um, he takes care of elderly people with disabilities.
Yeah.
And so two of these elderly guys that with disabilities um, allowed us to come into their room. They were just sitting back, and my friend Tim was playing folk songs and folk rock songs from the 60s and 70s, and I was making fun of him playing them. And
Right.
that was our comedy act.
Oh, that was great. Yeah, I'll give you a good line really quick, Alan. My friend was tuning a piano in a mental hospital, and two of the patients were sitting there, and he's fixing the piano, and he looks at him, he goes, "So what do you guys do here all day?" And he goes, they go, "Act like we're crazy." Isn't that great? That is so, but this many decades of playing has mainly been a player of percussion. That's the
Well,
main.
mainly, but in this band, um, I'm not really sure. I think I answered an ad on Craigslist or something. They were looking for a drummer or something. And I said, well, I'm not really a drummer. I have congas and bongos and hand percussion stuff. And when I got there, the lady was a blues singer and they wanted to do a blues thing. So I brought a snare drum and brushes so they could,
Right. Yeah.
I wasn't really very good at it. And then we did that for a little while. And then one of my friends, who is a real drummer, plays drum kits and stuff, bought a thing called a Roland Hand Sonic.
Yeah.
And the Roland, are you familiar with that instrument?
No, tell me about it.
It's a disc about the size of a large conga drum head. It
Yeah.
has 13 pads on it, 4 large ones and 9 smaller ones. And you can program any of those 9 pads with any of 800 percussion sounds.
So you just sort of tap your fingers.
Exactly. It's perfect for a conga player.
Wow,
I
cool.
could play drum kit on this thing, or I could play Latin music,
Right.
or whatever. So the other thing that was really cool about it was our guitarist had a looping pedal.
Yes.
And so I had never used one before. So I practiced with it and I learned how to, most blues songs are pretty simple, like boom,
Yeah.
chick, boom, chick.
Yeah.
So I programmed those drum parts on the
Loop.
looper,
Yeah.
which sounded just like a real drum kit.
Yeah.
And then I play harmonica, and that's my other instrument. So
Oh, that's great. So
I learned how to play harmonica hitchhiking cross country, 40,000 miles of hitchhiking with a little piece of metal in my pocket to keep me company on
dude,
those long waits between rides.
we have so much in common. In 1970, in 71, I hitchhiked around the country twice
Me
with a
too.
with a harmonica in my back pocket.
Me
Because
too.
when you're hitchhiking, I mean, how cool is that? You just whip out your harmonica, and the harmonica's like a kind of instrument. You can do anything and it sounds good.
Exactly, exactly. So the band wanted me to play harmonica, and so I said, God, I've never done this in front of anybody before, and they said, well, let's see how it goes. So I got pretty good at it, and then I got really brazen, and I said, I want to sing a song in the band. I've been a percussionist for 40 years, but I've never
Yeah.
sung in public.
Yeah.
And they said, well, cool. So what song do you want to sing? I went, well, the only song I think I can pull off. Oh, God, this is embarrassing. The only song I think I can pull off is Harry Belafonte's Banana Boat song.
Oh, right. Great.
So they said, great, so let's hear it. And off I went. Day-o, day-o, daylight come and me won't go home. So I do this in our shows, and
No.
everybody sings along with the daylight come and me won't go home. It is the best crowd pleaser we do.
That's it. It's all about choral, community, hootenanny. That is the best.
Exactly. Exactly.
So let's go back in time, Alan.
Sure.
You're growing up. What's the tipping point for you to say, I want to be a music player? I want to play music and not just be a listener. What were your parents playing around the house? Were you listening to radio? How was that? How can you articulate that tipping point where you go, I want to do this?
Well, the tipping point came one evening when a friend of mine in college said, a friend of mine is playing in this coffee house. We should go see him. And we
Yeah.
went to see him. And at the end of his show, he came over to our table and he said, "So, what did you think?" And my friend said, "God, I thought you were great." And I said, "I thought you were really good, but that guy that was playing bongos with you was terrible and was just a distraction." And he said, "Well, what do you know about it?" And I said, "Oh God, even I could play better than he was."
Ah!
And
Not
so,
not having played yet.
right, I didn't, I never. And I was a trumpet player before that. But my entire life I've been on desks, on my knees, on my
Right.
pillow, and I think when I was like 11 years old, it was my dream to be able to play the drum part from Wipeout. So,
Oh, yes, exactly.
so I'm sorry for making noise at you.
That's that noise, dude. You know Wipeout was recorded in the studio that Zappa had?
I no, but thank you for sharing that with me.
Wipeout is the song that us baby boomers grew up with, knowing that is that and then it turned into the drum solo in Inagana Naria or Inagana Davida.
In the God diarrhea.
Yeah.
So
So then
I have to finish this little part of the
oh,
story.
yeah,
So
please.
when I said, "Well, even I could have played better than that," and he said, "Fine, you play tomorrow night." And I said, "I can't do that. I don't even have any bongos." And he said, "That's fine. I'm going to get the bongos from him. You come to my room tomorrow afternoon. We will rehearse for an hour, and then you can play. We'll see how good you do." And the first time I ever played bongos with anybody else was at a live gig.
And he said you're high he took you on then or
Well, we messed around and we became a duo, and we actually opened for Richie Havens at Mount
oh
Holyoke
my
College.
god, that is cool. Open for Richie Havens. And so, then you have this
That was
career.
the tipping point. That was the tipping
Yeah,
point.
no, that was really good. And then you have this career of being a talent agent and a booker, and now you're back in this blues band. Here's the question I'd like to pursue, Alan.
Sure.
A screenwriting teacher told me great art is when you can clearly see the intention of the maker. Kubrick says the opposite. Great art is when you can clearly not see the intention of the maker. What role does intention play in your creative process playing music?
Hmm. What role does intention play? The word intention, like so many words, um, has about 100 different meanings.
Yeah.
English is such an interesting language,
Hello.
and what that makes me think of is I trained in craniosacral therapy with Dr. John Upledger, who
Yeah.
who developed craniosacral therapy, and one of my favorite quotes of his is, "The shortest distance between 2 points is an intention." And so I think that what intention does is it winnows down that universe of possibilities into ones that you actually would like to manifest, because making choices is difficult. There are so many choices and so many options. So intention actually is is what happens when Michelangelo looked at a block of marble and said, "There's a body in there,
Yeah.
and my intention is to discover it."
Yes.
So, when I play percussion, my intention is to discover the way to merge and mesh with the other musicians. It's my favorite part of music is that you need to be present and listening at the same time you're actually performing and acting. It requires that it's one of those things that requires both left and right brain um,
Yeah.
conversation. Um, Most of the arts do that also. They always, painting requires, you know, the mental concentration, but also the freedom to bring in the inspiration from the right hemisphere of the brain.
You know, Alan, what you said evoked two major thoughts that I reiterate all the time. In you know, your teacher who said winnow it down possibilities, you know, the possibilities. It was really well put. How do you spell his last name again? The guy who taught you that?
Upledger.
Yeah.
And if you go to upledger.com, there's lots of information about craniosacral therapy.
Yeah.
Um, uh, I watched Dr. John on a CBS segment on alternative and complementary healing, and he
Yeah.
brought one of his patients, and the patient said, "Well, I had this problem and this problem and this problem," and in one session with Dr. John, he resolved all of those things, and I got better. So
Wow.
the interviewer said, "Well, so if this work is so profound and so powerful and effective, why don't more people know about this?" And he said, this made me laugh. He said, "Well, watching someone perform craniosacral therapy is just slightly less interesting than watching paint dry. You have your hands on the patient or client,
Yeah.
and what you're doing is you're trying to perceive what the tissue wants to do. Does the
Yeah.
tissue want to move this way or that way? But you're not really doing anything. You're not manipulating. You're not
Yeah.
chiropractic. You're not massaging. You are exercising curiosity. What is the tissue trying to tell me? And you let that information into your hands, and your hands follow the tissue, and that does amazing things. Uh,
Yeah.
One of my other teachers, a man named Lansing Gresham, teaches a form of work called integrated awareness. And God, so much to say about that. But and John Upledger was one of his mentors also. Is that the hand is the greatest tool for healing,
Yeah.
and the single most important piece of the healing process is that the person who needs to be healed needs to feel they have permission.
Wow. Well, this is so amazing because you know I was going to say, well, let's do the music thing for a while, and then we'll go into your thing as a therapist, and they're crossover.
They
Your
do.
your hand thing as a therapist and your hand thing as a percussionist is amazing. So I wanted to tell you these two thoughts. One was,
Sure.
you know, knowing what Shelly Manne, the great jazz drummer, played on a Zappa album, and I got to talk to him once. I says, "Well, what was it like playing for Frank?" And he says, "Frank knew what he wanted and got what he wanted," which is amazing because, like you were saying before, it's hard to know what you want.
It
And
is.
it is. And so then the Igor Stravinsky says, who was one of Frank's heroes and influences, said most people don't know what they like what they know. So
Beautiful.
if you only give them one thing, you know, like that's what they know, so they'll say that's what I like, but they don't know that these varieties. So Duchamp said there's no art without an audience. How much are you thinking of your audience when you're playing music?
Not a whole lot, actually. When I'm singing the Banana Boat song, I am thinking about them. I'm looking to see if any of them are singing along.
Yeah.
Um, and my intention when I'm performing music is to give people permission to have a good time.
Yeah.
When I was an agent and I was trying to I was trying to explain to Storm and Norman and Susie that nobody cares whether you play the right notes or not. They only care whether they have permission to have a good time. That's what they
Yes.
came for. And
That's it.
Susie is the absolute master of exhibiting having a good time while performing. She's 1 in 10 million, and uh, that thing about her whole style invites people to enjoy, invites
Wow.
people to relax and release and feel okay to be silly and funny. She's just a brilliant, brilliant comedian.
Yeah, no, you got that so well, and she is a sensitive vocalist too, so I have to tell you a story. She's playing with one of the greatest accordion players in the world. He played with everybody, and she did 10 years with him, and they're playing a serious song, and a couple of Susie's friends in the audience start laughing. And Nick gets pissed at Susie and said, "You made them laugh in the middle of a serious song." He says, Susie had nothing to do with making them laugh. It was that she is so, what you just described, like life affirming and funny,
And
like you
comfortable in her own skin.
and Lucille Ball, that when she sings a ballad, then people are going to laugh because it's like, well, where's the funny Susie? Because they want to expect that, and so that was so funny. I says, Nick, making anyone laugh is a good thing, and she didn't do it on purpose to make fun of your song. They just cracked up because of the circumstance. So let's go into music. You almost answered it there. What is the function of music?
I believe the function is to share, and to share emotions that don't feel safe to be expressed by the individual.
Yeah.
So, an artist, an artist or a musician shares their emotion and their vulnerability, lays it on the table, and says, "This is what I have to share."
Wow.
And the audience gets permission
Yes.
to step into that performer's reality. I've thought for my entire life that the whole reason for professional sports, the whole reason, is that it gives people permission to make noise.
Yes,
Because
that's
the first thing that happens to us when we come out of the womb is we get spanked on the tush and we cry, and that's a good thing.
yeah.
And for the rest of our childhood, we're told to not cry.
Yeah.
Every time we start crying, somebody goes, "Oh, don't cry." And as a baby, we're going, "Well, what the fuck? It's the only thing I know how to do."
Yeah. And my mom taught me that crying is good. And that was a beautiful thing. She was a nurse and just a beautiful human. She says, crying is good. Let it out of your system. But
Yes,
by the way, it also is releasing toxins through the tears. You're getting bad stuff out of your body.
yes, it
And you
is.
don't realize that the tears are getting this bad. And then, the other thing you said, I got to tell you, when I asked Norman, what's the function of music? He says, to keep us from going insane. but, but here's the one
Part of
I
it.
yeah, it is. And the one I really think what you said is we went and saw the Pogues, the Irish kind of punk folk group. Amazing. They reunited, and they're an amazing band. And the crowd was wild because it was 20 years since they had played, and they're packed. And it's like every white Irish dude is in the audience with his hand up in the air with a beer, like true Irish, and singing every lyric. But every eighth dude is drunk and he's falling over, and the other guys are holding him up. So it gives you permission to
Yeah,
sing along like
yeah.
you're fucking drunk in an Irish pub. That's all it was. And I said, our friend was in the Pokes. I says, you have to go get in the middle of your audience and experience it, because we were sitting because I got a seat by the people who had wheelchairs because I says I'm too old to stand here for 2 hours. And I couldn't even stare at the audience. I just stare. I mean, I couldn't stare at the band. I stared at the audience. They were so intriguing to just feel that vibe of what you said. It gave them permission to
That's
be.
it.
Yeah,
I mean, and look, athletes get paid tens of millions of dollars to perform in stadiums,
yeah.
and all the people that are there to watch them are there to make noise.
That's it.
That's why they're there, because they have permission to make noise.
Permission to make noise. That is, dude, you should write a couple books. I know you got a book, but everything you're telling me is so good. But the cool thing is this coming out natural. So let's stay on music for a few seconds.
Okay.
This is Aaron Copland's 4 elements or ingredients of music: melody, harmony, rhythm, and tone color. So just in lay people's terms, what is tone color to you? Not in academic musical terms. What does tone color mean to you?
I think I think tone color is the expression of emotion. It's the emotional aspect of music.
Yeah,
Music is mathematical. It is it's oh god, it's a whole bunch of things.
yeah,
But the tonal part of it is what vibrates with your body. It's what
yeah.
makes your body vibrate sympathetically. And so, you can strike a chord on the cello that will make you cry without there being any meaning in it at all, just because the vibration is sympathetic to something that you felt at some point.
That is so good, Alan. You really nailed it because um the 4 elements, melody, harmony, rhythm, and tone color. The question is, how do you integrate or focus? Is there a focus on one or the other? Now, being a percussionist, you would probably say, well, rhythm.
It's
But
all about the rhythm.
being a trumpet player, you had melody, harmony, and tone color. But
True.
being in a blues band, it's incorporating all 4. Talk
Absolutely.
just talk about how do you integrate or focus on melody, harmony, rhythm, and tone color?
I got to tell you, and this is kind of a cop out.
Yeah,
I played trumpet for about 11 or 12 years,
yeah,
and I got pretty good at it, but I never got good enough at it so that I could improvise.
yeah,
So I was always reading music. And when I started playing percussion, like I said, that guy is a lousy bongo player. Okay, you play tomorrow night.
yeah.
And so my first experience as a bongo player was live and in color. And I I have to tell you, in 45 years of playing music since then, I have not. Well, I can't say I have not read one note, but I've read so few notes of
Yeah,
music
yeah,
that 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 the ones I have read have had nothing to do with performing.
yeah,
So I play to express joy,
yeah,
and so I use those 4 elements
yeah,
as they're tools of expression.
yeah.
And I don't think I'm left-brained enough to even understand how they work together.
But this is good, Alan, because it's beautiful. My other friend says the 3 tenets of music are T's: technique, theory, and taste. So technique, you've learned how to play the percussion. And
Yeah,
theory, you're like saying, well, I don't know maybe the structure so much, but you know enough theory to know what's going on. It's a structure. But how does one acquire taste?
your brain has your brain has muscle memory,
Yeah.
and you've listened to enough music so that you could play along on any number of instruments with almost anything, because you've got a database of all of that stuff. You've perceived it. It is now in you.
Yeah.
So I just trust that the right thing is going to come out. Woo.
That is heavy. You know, most people say, "How do you get taste?" And they go, "Experience, exposure." But it is a phenomenal thing. Actually, a big hotshot music writer once told me, I asked him, "What do you think of beat fart?" Because he was a blues specialist. He goes, "I didn't take the right drugs." I was like, "You don't have to take drugs because Don is an acquired taste. Not everybody is you're going to be able to sit them down and play Trout Mass Replica and they're going to go, I love that." But
The drugs help, though.
well, that I think that's a possibility, but I think there's a purity to it because some people would you sit them down and playing the Beatles and they're like, "Oh, I get that," because it's
That's
been
right.
so exposed. But this thing about taste, here's McLuhan, and there's two parts to this. I'm curious your reaction.
Sure.
Song, this is McLuhan. Song is slowed down speech. The reason cultures have different musical taste is ultimately connected to language difference. So, just the second part, what's your take on that? The reason cultures have different musical taste is ultimately connected to language difference.
Hmm. Well, I can see that as an application, and there is a rhythm in language. I mean, clearly there's a rhythm in language, and
Yes.
different cultures, different languages come out in different time signatures and different rhythms. I mean, I think all of us came from Africa genetically,
Yeah.
and so if you study or listen to or just enjoy um, any of the many faces of African music, and then listen to those people communicating with each other, you're hearing the music in their conversation,
Yeah.
and so their music is uh, what's the right word, um, a byproduct of their language.
Good
So
word.
those
It
rhythms are in the language,
Yeah,
and then they articulate them with their instruments as well.
yeah. That was
I got to tell you, when I started playing congas and hand percussion, I was an English major in college, and by the time I got to be, I mean, I started playing with Bernie, I think, when I was a senior in college, and so I had taken almost all of my courses. And we talked last time about Henry Miller um, and Lenny Bruce and um,
Janoff and
Janoff and all kinds of things. But I was so sure by the time I got to Samuel Beckett and um, Finnegan's Wake, I was certain that there was nothing left to be said in language.
boom, that's me. That's it. It's Duchamp and Finnegan's Wake. It's like boom, everything is posed. Yeah. Good
Exactly.
luck.
So, so Watt went to the front door, found it was locked. So Watt went to the back door, which was also locked. So Watt returned to the front door, which now seemed to be open. So Watt entered the house. And I went, I did Watt as an oral interpretation of literature piece. And the other kids in the class were going, "Who is this guy?"
They're going, wow.
So my point though is that when I started playing percussion, I didn't have to think about it, and there were no words,
Yeah.
and I felt like I was actually expressing what I was feeling more articulately with those rhythms than I could ever possibly do with words.
Yes.
And I've come around and I've done plenty of writing since
Right.
then, and so it's a little bit disingenuous to say I like rhythm better than I like words, but um, and
But
the
it
music is
resonates. Yeah.
so much more pure
Yeah.
than language, because language is so open to interpretation
Well,
and
yeah.
misinterpretation.
Well, again, you have ESP because the next question is what's more fundamental, language or music?
Oh, definitely music,
Yeah.
definitely music.
Yeah.
Um, you know, Language is a toughie. Language is a toughie. It is what our species chose to use as a medium of expression. Now we have other mediums. We have touch. We have music. We have lots of mediums of expression. But we chose as a species to use language. And language does this. It puts words between you and whoever is hearing them. That's creating a safe distance between me and you.
Yeah.
And most of the time, words are used to create distance between us, not to create community.
Yeah.
You want community, you give somebody a hug.
Yeah.
You want to create distance, you use words.
Yeah.
And so,
Well, look at what you said was funny. Let me just apply it to Jean Rouch. He's a
sure.
French documentarian and film theorist, really wise person, Jean Rouch. And he said, when I have a camera in my hand between me and you, it's more real than if I don't have a camera, which is sort of funny because you're saying we're all, I think that's why humans invented things to put something between you and the other human being to like bridge or, somehow connect. Like, let's share a pizza or, let's share a Zoom discussion. But then it goes into the documentarian's dilemma of cinema verite or what's the other one called? I can't think of it, but it basically boils down to fly in the soup or fly on the wall. See, if you're fly on the wall, you're observing. If you're fly in the soup, you're right in there. You're manipulating the reality,
Gotcha. Gotcha.
So anyways, tell me an instrument. That was really good, Alan, what you said.
I have another piece to that one.
Go ahead. Sorry.
That I'd like to add to that.
Yeah, please.
It's something that I share with my clients, and what it is just an expression that I came up with, and it starts with a picture is worth 1,000 words.
Yeah.
And if a picture is worth 1,000 words, a motion picture is worth 10,000 words.
Yeah.
And a touch is worth 10,000 motion pictures.
Oh my, that's your original?
Yes.
That is good. Is that in your book?
It might be. I don't remember. If it isn't, I'll make a note to put it in.
A picture's worth 1,000 words. A motion picture's worth 10,000 words.
And a touch is worth 10,000 motion pictures.
Oh my God, that is really good. I'm going to use that one, man.
Well, Jerry, when I was training in craniosacral therapy, I had no idea what I was doing. The person that turned me onto it said, well, you'd probably be pretty good at doing it, but I don't think you're going to understand what you're doing at all. The anatomy is going to go right by you. But it's about what you're doing with your hands. And you put your hands on people and things change because of your intention. So if my intention is to create safe space for my client, to create a safe environment, when I touch them, that's what they feel. They feel I am safe. And the tissue in their body starts softening and changing and rearranging itself because we almost never feel safe anywhere, particularly if somebody is touching us.
Yeah.
So
is it called hands-on healing? Is that
it is? It is.
Okay, good. Yeah.
I mean, it's craniosacral therapy is they never say this is hands-on healing.
But you say it is applicable just in general. Come on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think we talked a little bit about last time about past life regressions.
Yeah.
And in one of my past life regressions, I was taught laying on of hands healing by my teacher who got crucified for teaching it.
Yeah.
And he said, this is just about showing up, being present, opening your heart, being compassionate, and being willing to share.
Yeah.
We're not doing the healing. The person we're putting our hands on, we are giving permission to heal. And
Yeah.
that permission is giving their resources, it's getting their minds of I'm not good enough to heal out of the picture so that they stop judging themselves.
Yeah.
And when they stop judging themselves, guess what? Things start flowing. Blood
Wow.
starts flowing. Your breathing starts flowing.
Yeah.
Everything, it's what I said before. It's all about permission. And
Yeah.
it's the greatest gift I've ever had is to be able to communicate permission without a single word, just by sharing my hands with somebody else.
Wow. Dude, you wouldn't believe this woman I interviewed probably a year or two ago. Really great dancer, I think, in New York. She said her dad was a doctor, and it really touched me. She said he used to hold the patient's hand. Now that is like nowadays, like, wait a minute, but it's like that thought to me just communicated so much. Just to say, okay, I'm going to talk to you about your health, your well-beingness. Okay, let's have some human contact here. Let's have some touch. It's almost like a form of what you do. And he was an
That's
old
right.
school doctor,
Well,
it's
the
amazing.
words were just asking for permission to hold their hands.
Yes, that's it.
I mean, I heard in one of your other interviews you mentioned Moshe Feldenkrais,
Yeah,
and
oh, we're gonna get to him. Yes, definitely.
and Moshe was whoa. I have no words for that person, but he trained my mentor Lansing Gresham in the integrated awareness work, and Lansing told me stories about Moshe um, dancing with clients, holding their hands and very gently moving them this way and that way. And basically, what he was doing was he was giving people who could not move permission to move. And that permission and a little encouragement, suddenly they could move, they could walk. And before he was done, they were dancing with him.
Unbelievable. Yeah, that
Lansing said that was the most miraculous thing I had ever seen until I started practicing Feldenkrais and started seeing it actually happen in my own hands.
oh my God. And there's two things. That's the function of music is to make people dance. One of the major functions, but the beauty is if you can't say it, sing it. If you can't sing it, dance it.
Oh, that's
I
beautiful.
love
Very
that one. But
beautiful.
tell me, Alan, tell me an instrumental that makes you laugh.
An instrumental, I mean, an instrumental piece of music.
Yeah, an instrumental piece of music that makes you laugh.
Well, there's one word in this song, but it makes me laugh. Mostly it's an instrumental. The song is Tequila.
Yeah, that's good. There's one
And that
that's
song makes me laugh almost every time.
that's good. That's Pee-wee's theme song, man. I
It
love
is,
that.
and I love Pee Wee.
Yeah. Oh God.
I'll
Okay.
take him with all of his faults.
Oh God. Pee-wee. He was the greatest, and he lives on. Okay, so you want to hear a great Pee-wee fact though?
Sure.
Uh, Judd Apatow was raised on Pee-wee, and he says, "I want to make another Pee-wee, film." And 40 years later, after Pee-wee's Big Adventure, they made another Pee-wee film, and they CGI'd Paul Rubens to be thinner.
Was that a
It-
Judd Apatow film?
no, well, you look it up. It's really worth seeing, but it like opened and closed within a week. It's no, it really is a good Pee-wee film. It
What,
is good.
do
Yeah.
you remember what the name of it is?
No, just look up, Pee Wee Herman's filmography, and it will be.
Okay.
But here's I want to go back to Thelonious Monk because you brought up this line that said, "Well, music is math." That's exactly what Monk said. Music is math. But when you listen to Monk, it doesn't sound like it like maybe is new math. But
Yeah,
he
really.
he said there are no wrong notes. Any comment?
There are no wrong notes. There are just notes that are played at the wrong time.
Very good. Now, Monk also said silence is the loudest sound in the universe. And,
It
you know,
is. It is. It's
yeah,
really important.
well, I'm gonna ask you, let me finish this little part, the
Sure.
intro is Miles talks about the space between notes, the silence. In Parliament Funkadelic, George Clinton said, "Funk is the absence of." So, how do you integrate silence? How do you know not to play? Especially as a percussionist, that's you're holding down this beat. How do you integrate silence in space between notes?
It takes discipline
Yeah.
because when you're performing, there's a the inner child part of you thinks I shouldn't be getting paid if I'm not doing something,
Right.
and and just that is enough to make you want to play more notes than you need to. But it's the spaces are what make the notes what gives them their presence.
Yeah,
It's like light and darkness. They can't. Neither one exists without the other. So
yeah,
the sounds don't exist without the spaces. Um, there are, you know, uh, I love listening to Miles' music. I hated watching him play because he turned his back on the audience
yeah,
and couldn't care less what the audience was thinking about anything.
yeah,
And was I don't think he was a very happy person. Um, but he made amazing music and inspired music.
yeah.
And most of the great jazz musicians, I'm not sure they actually most of them knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
I don't it seems rude of me to even suggest that as a possibility, but
It's not rude, Alan. I'll give you a perfect example just for that statement. You can continue. But
sure.
Sonny Rollins, probably the greatest living saxophonist now, even though he doesn't play anymore, he said, that after the concert, he would go backstage and keep playing. And the guys in his band would go, "Dude, we're done." And he'd go, "I'm still trying to work things out."
That's great. It's interesting in Don Beefheart's music.
Yeah.
It sounds so chaotic,
Yes.
and I've read a lot of things about him and his technique, and that he had to unteach all the musicians that were playing with him everything they knew about music because he wanted them to do it the way he wanted it to do it,
Yeah.
and that every note that was played on any of his albums was intentional.
Yeah.
You asked about the power of intention.
Yeah.
What kind of concentration does it take to be that precise and intentionally create things that sound like chaos? That's
Chaos.
part A. Part B is I went to see the Mothers of Invention 2 nights in a row when they had Flo and Eddie fronting the band,
Yeah.
and it was like 1971. And and the first night that I saw them, I went, "Oh my God, this is pandemonium! How do they even know what they're doing?" And it looked like complete chaos on stage. And there were jokes and skits and offhanded comments and sarcasms by Flo and Eddie, and just magical dissonance. And I went to see them the next night, and it was note for note and word for word exactly the same as the night before. And I went, "Oh, that's not possible. That is not possible."
That's heavy. Well, it is leading us right into Ruth Draper. The key is to bring the audience up onto the stage and into the scene with you.
Yes.
It is they who must give you even more than you give them in the way of imagination and creative power. You've touched on this a little, but that sounds good, but how do you do that?
By becoming vulnerable.
Wow.
You I've said this before, and it's probably somebody else's. I know it's somebody else's quote. All it takes to be a great artist is to open the vein and bleed a little,
Yeah.
and that's it's an allegory, but um, if you're not willing to be vulnerable, we did a gig a couple weeks ago, and not many people come to our gigs. We're not that popular, and we live in a very rural community. So one of the people had some of his friends who were married and had kids, and brought their kids to the show. So it was very different because there were a number of families there, but there were probably 10 kids between, I don't know, 5 and 12 years old. And at one point, we were about to play Oye Como Va by
Yeah.
Santana. And I said, listen, I can see the kids out there and they're dancing and they're having fun. I have a bag full of hand percussion stuff. I think all of the kids should come up, and I'll give, you can have a tambourine or a güiro or a claves or whatever. And we had like 10 kids on stage with us playing rhythm. And guess what? They all got it. They got it. They freaking got it. They had no idea what they were doing, but they heard it and they felt it and they got in time. It was, and the parents are watching like, oh my God, can you see what our kid is doing? Oh my God, this is amazing. They're having there's all their cell phones out there, all videoing and stuff. And you just said it's the audience that brings
Yeah.
the musicians out. Um,
But Alan, that's the answer that I've never gotten that's the best is, how do you do this? He goes, give them an instrument and have them join in. I mean, duh, that's simple. But
well, you have to be willing to look foolish because you have no control over what's going to happen.
well, this is the follow-up is Leonard Cohen saying the only way you can sell a concert is if you put yourself at risk. And if you don't do that, people know. What role does risk playing play in your creative process playing music?
Well, quite literally, because I really don't know what I'm doing. um,
That's why you're giving your instruments to the kids.
well, not any worse with them than it is with me.
No, I think you know what you're doing, but I mean, it's sort of like you're playing this part that is kind of linear. You have to keep the time. But where's the risk involved in being a percussionist?
Well, the risk for me is thinking at any moment I could do this terribly wrong and throw everybody else off. So just doing it is risky for me. But
I see.
I have a quote for you. I know you love quotes, so
Please.
I can't remember the name of the book this came from, but the writer is a guy named John Saul, Saul, and um, and the quote is, "Trust cannot be earned. It is a gift we give because we're willing to take the risk.
Yeah.
But you can't earn trust. It can only be given to you because the person that's trusting is willing to take the risk."
Yeah. No, that's good. So what does courage mean to you now?
What makes a king out of a slave? What makes the flag and the mast to wave? What makes the elephant charge his tusk in the misty mist of the dusky dusk? What makes the muskrat guard his musk? Courage. What role does courage play? Courage is everything.
Yeah.
It's it's showing up when you have no reason to be there. And you have no confidence and you show up anyway. You know, every time I put my hands on a client, I don't think I know anything about craniosacral therapy either. I
Yeah.
put my hands on, I go, hands, you know what you're doing. I don't care. Just do what you're doing.
Wow, is that muscle memory?
No, it's not. No, it's non-manipulative. It's
It's surrendering
acceptance.
to the moment? Like, it's surrendering to
That's exactly what it is. It's surrendering to the moment.
but it's surrendering to something you know what you're doing, but you're not it's sort of like surrendering to your subconscious? Because you know what you're doing, but you don't want to overthink it. Is that what you're saying?
Well, not quite. Um, it it really requires getting into a state of not knowing
Yeah.
and not caring whether you know or not.
Yeah.
Because when you care and you know, you start doing Western medicine.
Yeah.
In Western medicine, there's a contract. The contract is, here's my money, bang the dents out, call me when you're done.
Yeah.
It's the same contract you make with the auto body shop. Here's
Yeah.
my money, bang the dents out, call me when the work's done. And the insurance industry is daddy. Here's my money, or here's the insurance company's money. Call me when the work's done and I'll be better. So, no patient in that contract has to be responsible for anything.
Yeah.
It's all on the doctors. And the doctors have no control because it's all about what's going on for the patient, right? The patient controls whether they're well or not, or whether they're sick or not. And there's lots of reasons for that, but none of them are in the purview of the doctor.
Yeah.
So the again, I'm just going to have to go back to, you've got to be willing to give the patient the control, to
Yeah.
give the patient their power back.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what I learned from John Upledger and Lansing Gresham. Um,
Give the patient control,
exactly.
yeah, in the confidence. But I heard the difference between Western and Eastern medicine or healing arts is in the West, you go, I want a cure. And then the doctor says, well, we don't give cures, but here's an effective remedy,
Okay.
sort of like that. East, they don't have cures, they teach you maintenance.
Yes. And the difference there is doctors fix things and alternative practitioners give the patients the tools to fix themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's what I do more in my practice than anything else.
Yeah.
Is I do more teaching than I do touching, actually. I teach people how to breathe, how to relax, how to connect with their inner kids, um, how how to regain their power. You know, we spend 12 years in childhood being wrong. You know, I'm probably wrong about everything. Comes from 12 years of childhood being wrong about everything.
Exactly.
I mean, we spend 12 or 13 or 14 years failing at everything that we try until we eventually do it enough times so that we stop failing. But we are professional failers. We're as
I'm a
good as it gets at it.
That's the U2 just played this show in Vegas in this big super fucking Bucky Fuller Dome. It's like the most amazing rock concert ever. It's the Sphere, it's called.
Okay.
And they have a shot of it in the newspaper, and behind the singer, there's a big sign that says, "Everything you know is wrong." Yeah, yeah. I just paid $500 to see these wankers rock out, and they're telling me everything I know is wrong. Hey, that's a right statement.
I think Timothy Leary might have said that also.
Yeah. Well, no, it's really good. There's an amazing thing that's happening here, Alan. And I say this to students sometimes. I say, get your life and your job as mixed up as possible. And we're I was saying, okay, let's do the music thing and then we'll go into the therapy thing. It's constantly that the music and the therapy thing's like a DNA strand for you.
They
Your
are.
whole life is mixed up in it, and you can't separate, okay, this is my job and this is my pastime.
No, you're absolutely right, and the same skill set applies to both things. Be,
Exactly.
be willing to be present and be willing to be vulnerable.
Those two amazing words. So here's, Viola Spolin. She was a social worker in Chicago, and she was doing role playing with her patient or her clients or whatever you call them, people she was
Yep,
helping,
gotcha.
social worker, helping people. And she basically invented comedy improv by studying Martin Buber and Viola Spolin. Then it spawned Second City, Saturday Night Live, and
Right.
all the comedy improv guys, Del Close and everybody. So here's her line. If the audience cannot see your struggle to achieve something, they cannot root for you to achieve it.
No, that's great.
Yeah, what role does struggle play in your creative process?
Oh, God, I got to think about that for a minute. I think I actually was thinking about that earlier today. Uh, I think kind of like the Buddha said, life is suffering, but I think it's not just suffering. I think life is struggle.
Yeah,
And the role of struggle is to instruct you, to instruct us,
yeah,
and to widen our perceptual net. Um, Struggle forces us to look at things that we don't understand already,
yeah,
that we don't know how they work. I mean, on the simplest thing I can think of is um, a grain of sand gets in an oyster's belly and it irritates the oyster and it struggles and struggles and struggles and it creates a pearl.
yeah,
And without the struggle, no pearl. And we we struggle and we create pearls.
yeah.
I can't believe I just said that. I have on my desk. One of my friends got married a few years ago, and a number of years ago, I wrote these things called pearls. They were like pearls of wisdom from me. Can I read a couple of them to you?
Oh, please. I love it.
Okay. These are love pearls.
Yeah.
Love has no conditions, but it benefits from cherishing being in the moment.
Yes.
I'll send these to you. You don't have to write any of them down. Love is a state of being, not an act of doing.
Yeah.
Love cannot be earned or lost, though occasionally it can be temporarily misplaced. Love is our acknowledgement of our commonality and its consequence, joy.
Wow.
Love requires only that we prefer intimacy and sharing to being right and wrong. Love travels in every direction. You are one of the directions. Love embraces us as we accept and embrace one another. Love makes all acts of doing valid and honest and a benefit to all. And finally, love is a gift we give ourselves because nothing else feels nearly so good to us.
Wow. Beautiful.
I thought
I
you'd like
love
those.
I love that. And I
So those
will
all came from struggles.
well, I I think you answered that question well, and I will look forward to that email because these are the things I print out and hand off to people. I'm a flyer kind of guy, like hard copy. And couple more things. You actually brought up a feeling of, what does freedom mean to you now? And you know, there's this this thing about freedom is what McLuhan learned. T.S. Eliot said, freedom is only truly freedom when it appears against the background of an artificial limitation. And then that caused McLuhan to say, how are you to argue with people who insist on sticking their heads in the invisible teeth of technology, calling the whole thing freedom? What, Alan, what does freedom mean to you now?
I think it means permission.
Yeah.
Um, I think I don't know whether I can get much more abstract than that.
No, that's fine. It was just funny because in talking about the struggle, and this is another one more music question. Ben Ratliff is a music writer, and he said, "I mean sound as it has long functioned among jazz players, as a mystical term of art, as in every musician finally needs a sound, a full and sensible embodiment of their artistic personality, such that it can be heard at best in a single note." So, like me and you could hear a couple notes from Captain Beefheart and go, "That's Don Van Vliet. That's Captain Beefheart." We could hear a couple notes from Miles Davis and go, "That's Miles." What Ben did was he said, "There's two words. I'm going to explain Miles: fragile and pointed." John Coltrane, slightly undercooked and urgent. If a music, if a music person writer was going to nail Alan's sound as a percussionist, what two words would you say? They got me.
Smiles and joy.
Oh, how nice. That's what percussion's all about. Shake your booty, smile, and be jubilant.
I have another thought about the freedom thing,
Oh, please go
and,
ahead.
and I think it's about the ability to make choices and act on them. And we are creatures who thrive on the ability to make choices. It's why prison is such a bad punishment, because
Yeah,
they take away your ability to make choices.
yeah,
That's the most fundamental thing about being a human, is you
yeah,
get to choose.
yeah,
And without being able to choose, you don't get to make mistakes. And without making mistakes, you don't get to learn. So we incarcerate people who have made mistakes and give them no opportunity to learn from them.
yeah.
And Tim Leary did this thing at Harvard. I think we talked about it the last time, actually, where he did acid with 10 maximum offenders, and the recidivism rate among those offenders was like 15%, as opposed to 80%, which was the recidivism rate of the general inmates who got released. His prisoners that got released, most of them never committed a crime again
Wow.
because they had been so changed. And why is not LSD used in every prison in the United States? For
Yeah,
exactly that reason. And he was doing it as, one of the heads of the psychiatry department at Harvard University.
yeah,
He couldn't have been more credible
yeah.
anywhere. So anyway, sorry, it just
Oh, that's a perfect example because eventually he there's this hippie druggy thing that got labeled on him and people didn't
yes,
realize the guy wrote 33 books. And yeah, we did touch on him in the first part, and that's thing you just said was not mentioned in the first, so I appreciate you bringing that up.
sure.
So this is Michael Apted, the filmmaker. I talked to him 40 years ago and I says, "Why do rock video editors feel so obliged to edit fast?" Most people don't know Abel Gance invented rapid montage in 1922. But in the 80s, it flourished because of MTV, to the point where Marty Scorsese said, "I cut my films faster because of MTV." So Michael Apted said, because we've learned to take in information faster. And I asked this question with a bias. Alan, can we actually learn to take in information faster, or are we just brainwashed to believe we can?
You're taking my breath away. Well, I think we take in information as fast as it comes.
Yeah.
Can we assign meaning to it in a meaningful way? Can we make use of that information? That's another question altogether. I
Yeah.
think I think when I do past life regressions, people are actually able to remember things that happened in past lives. When I do hypnosis, they're able to recall in detail things that happened to them 40 or 50 years ago. And so my my understanding is that we are videotaping and audio taping every experience we have as human beings. We just don't have the storage capacity or the software to be able to keep it organized well enough to be able to retrieve it, on demand.
Yeah.
I think we're about to get a comeuppance when we realize that, guess what? AI can take it all in and it can get it back whenever it gets asked.
Amazing, Alan. Do you think humans can literally multitask?
No.
Yeah.
I think I watch us try to do it all the time.
Yeah.
And you know what? We can multitask really incompetently, but nobody can multitask competently. You can't focus on one thing and be thinking about something else. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah. But
I don't think the left hemisphere of your brain would allow that.
yeah. No, I appreciate the left and right hemisphere. We discussed that a lot in my group, and what you
Yep.
just touched on was this question I have about archiving. So, we invent the word archiving in the 1400s. It means keep safe, free from harm. Then the 1600s, it's the noun archives, records and records and documents preserved as evidence. And it even goes to the root word, the Greek for town hall, public building, the first ARCHON. But the basic question is, are we hardwired? Is archiving more innate or more invented? Because you were talking about this storage capacity of the
Mhm.
human brain. And the Egyptians would put things in their coffins with them. This is like physical archiving. You were sort of touching on this other type of archiving that we have, because really our archives is our memory. But there is paperwork, there is films, there's photographs, there's sculptures, artwork that documents. And so the Eastern philosophy, as we know from our era, Ram Dass, be here now. Wyndham Lewis said, we live in the present and write a detailed history of the future. So, why would humans want to archive if the important thing is to be here now in the present? I mean, is this need or want to archive more innate or more invented? What do you think?
I think it's invented, and I think it's a hedge against being judged, because what we fear the most is being judged. And the reason for that is because, well, this is going to sound like a stretch maybe, but when we're children and we make mistakes, we're corrected. But they don't feel like constructive criticism. It feels like punishment. It feels like judgment. And a lot of the times it is. I have a memory that this entire event took 10 seconds to happen, and yet it is emblazoned in me forever. I was talking about something at the dinner table, and I was 12 or 13 years old, and my adenoids were coming in, or my voice was changing, and I was talking kind of nasally, And my father stopped and he said, "What do you got? A potato up your nose?"
Wow.
It may be the most demeaning thing that has ever been said to me in my life, because it completely cut my knees and my legs out from under me.
Wow.
Because when you didn't hear one word that I said, you were just listening to the music.
Wow.
And you wanted to change the station. You just eliminated me from your reality. And uh, if I tell you that that still hurts, you know, 60 years later, it still hurts
Yeah.
because because um, because in that moment I knew I could never trust him again.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow. It's heavy.
You don't see me at all.
Yeah.
So I guess the other thing you were asking me about archiving, and I
Yeah.
said, we don't want to be judged. And the reason that I said that is that we're so conditioned to being judged,
Yeah.
first by our caregivers, then by our teachers, then by our peers, then by our mates, then by blah, blah, blah. And every time we get judged, it hurts.
Yeah.
Every time we get judged, um, somebody inside of us says, "Yes, you're right. I'm wrong. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not fast enough. I'm not clever enough. I'm not cute enough. I'm not beautiful enough." Through whatever lens you want to look at it, we're just not enough. And feeling like you're not enough is so painful that we don't want to give that power to anybody else. We don't
Yeah.
want anybody else to have that to hold over us, so that when they look at us with judgment, we're not going to let them get there. So we go there first. I know I'm not good enough. I know I'm not fast enough. I know I'm not quick enough, cute enough, smart enough, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And if I judge myself first, then fuck you. I don't care what your opinion is. I got there before you did.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
so this archiving thing is just another byproduct of not wanting to be judged.
Amazing. Really well put. And Zappa said, I don't want to be remembered, but he was deep into his archives, built this huge cement archive so he could use the stuff that he taped in his current projects. Then, Joan Baez, the new documentary is coming out on her. And they said, "Do you have any archives?" She goes, "Yeah, I got a storage space, but I've never been in it." Her mom saved everything. So it was the documentarian holy grail. They got everything in there. And then they're talking to her about it and says, "Well, what are you going to do with this archive?" And she goes, "I don't know, burn it." And her assistant goes, "No, we're working with the Smithsonian to put it in their so we know that history libraries work, they're important, but there is this funny paradox, like, why are we saving when we kind of want to move forward? Now, this thing about being judged is an amazing approach to this archive question. And I'm wondering, maybe I brought up this quote, but it reminded me of Nassim Taleb saying games were created to give non-heroes the illusion of winning. In real life, you don't know who wins or loses, but you can tell who a hero is. So can you integrate that into being judged?
Well, I think that quote is wonderful and very insightful. I think it's the reason that we play sports and the reason that we play games, in addition to being able to make noise while we're doing it. But we're so used to being not enough, so
Yeah.
used to feeling not enough, so used to feeling diminished by the world. Um, I mean, I get 50 ads a day on um, Facebook about, here's how you can become a better therapist or a better coach or a better this, that, or the other thing,
Yeah.
and they're all playing on that same thing of, you're not good enough, but I have tools to help you become good enough if you pay me enough money. And
Yeah.
I think I think it's great to at least have the experience of feeling like a hero every once in a while, because it's a relief from that drum solo of not enough, not enough, not enough, not enough.
Yeah. Alan, this is really good. Here's my one of my first questions I started 40 years ago. What's more important, conviction or compromise?
Well, conviction is about what's good for me, what I like, I'm convicted about. Well, compromise is about what's good for us, for you and me.
Yeah.
What can we agree on? So I don't know whether did you ask was one better than the other? I think they're just two completely different things. One's about the individual. One's about sharing.
Yeah. No, it's really good because it took 25 years before a guy said, depends on what you mean by important. So, most people hear the question, what's more important, conviction or compromise? And, that's really good because, there's no right or wrong answers on these questions. Is it
Yeah, no,
more
I got you. I
or
got
that? They're just a prompt. And this one is about your accomplishments. You've accomplished a lot. In fact, before I ask that, do you have plans for your own archive? You have papers that you've researched to write your books, and probably have tapes and CDs and recordings of your music. You have boxes of stuff that's Alan's history. Do you have any plan for it at all?
I have imaginings. I have no plans.
Well, give me an imagining. What would you like to happen?
Well, I think I'd like to have enough time to write another 4 or 5 books, but there's a problem. Writing books requires that you have a relationship with your keyboard. I'm a people person.
Yeah,
I don't I don't want to have a relationship with my keyboard. I want to have interactions with real live human beings.
yeah,
And 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 all of these artsy things are you have to cloister yourself in order to do them
yeah,
and take yourself away from the things that you love. And it's really a conflict for me. I had months and months that I couldn't work on my book at all because I had inner kids going, are you fucking kidding me? We're going to do this more? There's
yeah.
more to this? When are we going to get to play?
What a great word. That's what it's all about, play.
I think it is. I mean, we have X number of minutes on this little sphere to run around and get the most joy out of it, and we spend it, oh God, trying to impress the neighbors.
So, I had this question for a while. It says, after the word "the," what summarizes your life? It's like James Joyce, "The Wake," you know, Frank Zappa, "The Big Note." And I asked Eric McLuhan what was his word after the, and he said the playground. And I says, what would your dad say? And he goes, same, the playground, which is so funny because there's your word play, but ground is figure ground, gestalt therapy. It was like the big picture, and it means like the earth. So I love that you brought up the word play. That's so
And we
important.
learn so much more when we're playing
Yeah,
than when we're doing anything else.
yeah,
Um, and I've often thought that everything should be free and playful when we're kids, while we actually have bodies that can experience things. We should all travel the world. We should all be given tickets to fly wherever we want to go, and meal tickets to eat whatever we want to eat, and the opportunity to experience what there is to experience here. Because once we hit 20 or 22, we're expected to make a living, and
yeah,
and all of that play is gone, and we think that, well, if we work hard enough, we'll be able to retire at some point. Well, I got to tell you, I'm not I don't know if I have the energy to do all those things that would have been so much fun when I was 20 anymore. I mean, I did do them when I was 20. I took my retirement, 6 or 7 months out of the year while I was young.
That's good. You got to that's the joke I repeat, and most people our age can laugh, but the people who have kids now don't, and it goes like this. The kid goes up to the parent and goes, "Are you absolutely sure you won't support me for the rest of my life?" Me and you can laugh, but parents who have kids
Yeah.
now, that's how they go, "That's not funny." We were like, 16 or 17, we're like, "We're out of here," you know?
Yeah. I have to interrupt just for a moment
Yeah,
because you asked me what the title of my book was last time,
yeah.
and I held up a picture of a cover. It was just the words, but I've changed the name of the book. I've
Oh, good.
changed the title of the book.
What is
So
it now?
this is just a mock-up of a cover, also.
Yeah.
So let me see if you're actually able to see this.
Loving our inner kids, tools to heal our wounded selves. Beautiful.
So I think that's a little bit more to the point about what the book is about.
Yeah,
um, First finding your inner kids and then making peace with them,
yeah,
and the essence of it is figuring out a way to love them so that they have the opportunity to feel what real love actually feels like, because it's so rare and
yeah,
so elusive.
yeah. No, it's been beautiful, Alan, and, I hope that you will agree. You're the first in 40 years. We've gotta do a part 3 and hopefully a part 4. And, I'm booking, January, February, and March now, so why don't we book a part 3 somewhere down the road?
I'd
Because,
love to,
again,
Jerry.
I only did a few, of our of the, questions that and we got through some of them, but, and I appreciate your time, and it's really a delight to spend this time with you.
Me
Let
too.
let's close out this one with, it's a two-parter. It's you've accomplished a lot, and, I said, "What are you doing?" You're putting your book out. You've accomplished a lot. Um, how do you rate these 3 elements in your accomplishments? Luck, skill, and ambition. What played the biggest role, 2nd and 3rd?
Ambition played almost no role. But actually, that's not true. It did play some role. Um, I'm not sure that there is such a thing as luck. I believe we have angels and guides that are helping us. I certainly know that I have, because I could have been toast about a billion times without somebody from somewhere going, "No, I think we're going to take a left here instead of a right," and or something like that. So um, um, I've had when you've had so much luck, it's not luck anymore.
Yeah.
It's destiny. So maybe you should change. Is destiny one of those things that should be on that list?
Well, it's
Um,
fun because I'm always welcoming new words because I give 3 possibilities and people actually do say, "Well, you left this out or you left that out." So I like you adding destiny.
and skill is something you acquire by doing stuff over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I'm better at some things now than I was when I started. Um, I'm not sure any of those things are all that important, to tell you the truth. I can
No, I
bang a
mean,
nail better than I could when I was a kid, so I hit my thumb less than I hit the nails these days. But
well,
um,
that's Mark Twain. When you have a hammer in your hand, everything looks like a nail.
that's right. That's right.
But
I,
it
I listened to part of your interview of "Are You Serious?"
Oh,
and
yeah.
oh God, what a brilliant man he is.
Yeah.
Um, and one of the questions you asked him, I think, was, "How do you handle false fears?"
Oh, yeah, we're gonna
And
get to that in part 3, but go ahead. What do you want?
that question really intrigued me.
Yeah.
And when I was thinking about it, all I could think of was that uh, there are no false fears,
Yeah.
and that or that all fears are false.
Yes.
And it made me think. I'm going to have to read you this because uh, one of my favorite books of all time was Dune by Frank Herbert, and
Yes.
in that there is a quote by the messianic Paul Muad'Dib, um, when he's somebody's trying to kill him, and if he moves, he will die. So he repeats this litany that his mother taught him, and the litany goes, "I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings total obliteration. I will face my fear. I will permit it to pass over me and through me. And when it has gone past, I will turn the inner eye to see its path. Where the fear has gone, there will be nothing. Only I will remain."
Nice.
Isn't that an amazing
But
quote?
but the I is there's a double there. He's saying
Yes.
the inner I, EYE, and then the
Yes.
second I is the letter I.
Yes.
It's an amazing quote. Definitely send me that along with
Okay.
the love quotes.
The,
But
the
but
love pearls.
but let's just finish off on this because we
Sure.
will go into the false fear on that, ambition, luck, and skill. That was good because Gary Player said the more you practice, the luckier you get.
Yeah, you go. I've heard
And,
that too.
and we ended last time with Susie. I'd love Susie would practice her in between song patter for these shows all the time. And then she'd get there and then she would just ramble off on the Susie, and it was so good because she practiced so much. It enabled her to just ramble on between the songs and make you feel like she's making this up on the moment. It's not like scripted, like the song lyrics is the same. That is something that's sort of scripted. But
Has
the
she? Yeah, yeah, I gotcha. Has
yeah,
she ever told you her Walter Cronkite joke?
tell me it. I don't remember that
Oh,
one.
I'm not going to try and do Lenny Bruce's material or Susie's, but ask her to tell you the Walter Cronkite joke.
Oh, I will. That is cool because we
I don't
sort
do other comedians' material.
we yeah. No, I have it in big bold letters. Your heroes, Janoff, Lenny Bruce, John Lennon, Henry Miller, and then I goes, wait, the other two are Beefheart and Zapp. I was like, this dude's talking my language. But Susie and I know each other's jokes and we can repeat them, but that one I don't know. But in closing, I wanted to say, what I'm always morphing in fine tuning the wording on the questions.
Okay.
And you know, for 35 years, I asked the question, is ambition based more on fear or joy? Sort of like your observations of humans, is ambition based more on fear or joy? How would you answer that?
Ambition is totally based in fear.
Yeah, that's what most people said, and it was funny. So then I read,
If you have joy, you don't need ambition.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
it's all good, Jerry. It's all good.
it's all good. And then I asked, then I read William Friedkin, who just died, the guy who directed The Exorcist,
Yeah.
and he said, in Hollywood, it has nothing to do with skill or luck. It's all ambition. So then I changed the question to, with your accomplishments, how do you rate these three? And it's interesting because some people say they're sort of leery to just say skill because it sounds like you're not being humble. But some people say no skill. Some people say luck. Ambition's usually down a little, but it's fun that you proposed another word,
Destiny.
destiny, and I got to write that down because that is the other one was someone purpose. Someone said you left out persistence, you left out necessity. So it
Mm.
is fun to hear why people feel driven. It's sort of like this thing about the work ethic. I will say to people sometimes, where'd you get your work ethic? Because us us boomers won't give up. We're always fucking working, even though we like to have slack and chill out. And and most people go, "Oh, my parents." Because our parents were go-getters and they're like, "Work, work, 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 work," and then you gotta go work. And if you look up work ethic in Wikipedia, about the third paragraph down, it says this could be a scam from consumer capitalism.
Oh God, Puritan ethic. It's not just for breakfast anymore.
Well, Alan, what a pleasure. You can't have a better life than to laugh and have fun when you're having like a fruitful conversation with someone, like face to face. So thank you so much, Alan. And you broke the world's record. We're going for part 3. I love it.
Oh, Jerry, yeah, I'm so honored. It's such a great pleasure. Um, it's it it's so destiny.
It's
Destiny.
as we were destined.
You and I met because you were looking over Susie's shoulder on her Facebook page, and she said, "Is that a picture of Beefheart with somebody that you know?"
Like, what the fuck is Beefheart doing on your Facebook page? That's freaky.
It may be my most favorite picture of all time.
Well, listen, Alan, look up the Beefheart website
Will
and
do.
look up their whole rap on Berman. I think they have. This is freaky that you didn't know about Berman, and I should read his book, but there's like lots of information on him. And it's who knows that you guys are destined to be long lost relatives. Your love of Berman, it might be in your DNA to love Beefheart,
Yeah. Did we talk last time about Jonathan Brooke? Did I mention her at all? Do you
No,
recall?
tell me who is that?
So Jonathan Brooke, it's Jonatha Brooke, because you asked me about archives,
Yeah,
and about 10 years ago, she was asked by, she's a singer songwriter, brilliant singer songwriter. Um, I wrote a review of one of her albums on Amazon that said she will never be famous because her songs make people feel. And we've already decided as a species, we're not going to feel. So
wow.
go away. But she was asked to, as part of a project, Woody Guthrie's daughter, whose name escapes me at the moment, had all of Woody Guthrie's archives,
Right.
files and stuff.
I
And
remember that. Yeah.
and she asked a number of artists to put music to some of his old poems and poetry and stuff.
Yeah.
And so Jonathan wrote the music to one of the songs, and his daughter wrote it, loved it so well that she said, "Oh my God, you can have access to the archives forever. Do whatever you want with them." And Jonathan did an entire album of music called The Works, based on poems and fragments of stories of Woody Guthrie, and the album is transcendent.
Oh my
And you, I think Susie knows her because they were performing in New York around the same time that Norman and Susie were. Jonathan used to live on the Upper East Side, and I think they played a lot of the same clubs. I know Norman knows her. So anyway, but
Well, I wanna have her on my podcast, but
oh yes, you definitely do.
spell her last name one more time.
Brooke.
Great. Thank you.
So she's got tons of things on YouTube and stuff, and it's a rabbit hole you will be absolutely thrilled to go down.
I can't wait. Alan and I can't wait to go down our rabbit hole one more time. I'm gonna send you the dates right now. Pick one in January, February, March, and we'll go for part 3. Thank you so much, Alan. You are the best.
Much love, my friend. Thank you. You are the best too.
Like Don Van Vliet, the best batch yet.
The stars are matter and we're matter, but it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter that I'm going to hit the end broadcast button, because we know, even though I'm hitting the end broadcast button, this will never end. We'll
Give yourself a big hug for me, Jerry.
I am. This Zoom will last forever and ever.
Have a good night.
Thank
Give
you.